This webinar is organized in the frame of live seeding. It is a Horizon Europe project, as everybody knows. We are working within work package 2, advancing organic cultivar testing, task 2.2. The goal of task 2.2 is to take the maximum benefit out of the 7 years temporary derogation for organic varieties. The goal of this webinar has to do with the deliverable 2.3, which is due September 25. We have to deliver it, in which we describe all aspects of adjusted DUS, adjusted protocols for DUS for organic varieties with a higher degree of diversity. And the goal of this webinar is to inform the live seed community about the things we have reached till so far, in close collaboration with breeders and the EcoPB, the European Community of Organic Breeders. The program for this afternoon until 3 o'clock will be, I will explain something about the heterogeneity in variety in various cultivar types. I will tell something about the legal framework, also in connection with IPR, organic varieties and intellectual property rights. The fact that organic varieties must come from a organic plant breeding, and we just half a year ago we reached an agreement on the definition of organic plant breeding and why it is important that it comes from organic plant breeding. The principles of a new schedule, an adapted DUS schedule for organic varieties. I will show some examples of how it works in practice. And last but not least, the route of organic variety proposals to the Commission, to the EU Commission. Now there are mentioned a few in the amending directive for organic varieties, and the goal is to have many more. To start, I will explain something about the heterogeneity and cultivar types. On the left hand of the spectrum, we have the organic heterogeneous material, which is by purpose bred for the maximum heterogeneity to achieve a higher resilience. Several examples of OHM are mentioned in the figure. On the right-hand side of the figure, we have the conventional varieties for which the normal DUS is developed and is applied for registration, for variety registration. One step to the left, we have the organic varieties, which are less uniform as conventional varieties, so they may not pass the traditional DUS test, and for which varieties an adjusted DUS system has been developed. Of course, for VSCU, for organic farming, for organic agriculture, also VCU applied, VSCU under the new regulation, value for sustainable cultivation and use. The webinar on that we had this morning. I am happy to see that quite some people who attended the webinar this morning I see also in this webinar. Very good. So this is the future scenario which is under construction in the PRM law. Another category is the category of the conservation varieties, which are consisting of the existing conservation varieties. The existing amateur varieties are also placed under this category. Common known fruit varieties and traditionally grown or new locally produced varieties. So for conservation varieties and OHM varieties, no registration is required, just a notification. Instead, organic varieties and conventional varieties, of course, have to pass the DUS, and for agriculture also the VCU, totally compliant with the CPVO and UPOV regulations. Variety registration, where do we do it for? To have high quality seeds on the market, to protect breeders, and also to protect the users on the market. It is important that the candidate variety is a novelty. It has never been marketed before, and the name should be according to the rules, and also it must be a new name so that it is recognizable as the variety that the farmer buys. The test for distinctibility, uniformity, and stability is required, and also the value for cultivation and use for agriculture crops. Organic varieties are characterized by a high level of diversity. So the DUS procedure, because of the uniformity rules, may not apply. What does the law say about this? We have, since 2022, we have the implementing directives for organic varieties that says things about the adapted DUS procedures. They made it possible. For vegetable crops, number 1647, for kohlrabi and carrot, they are already in force. And for agriculture crops, which is in force for wheat, barley, rye, and maize until now. So, within the scope of live seeding, in collaboration with EcoPB and other breeders, 7 new proposals are now in a very far stage of preparation for the Commission. We had a lot of discussions with the breeders and with GFS, and now they are presented. They are presented. They are ready for further presentation and moving forward to the Commission ultimately. More proposals are upcoming in collaboration. It is important to present many adapted OV protocols for organic varieties. Otherwise, we are afraid that we will lose the opportunity for organic varieties to be registered after the 7 years derogation has ended. So here we see the scheme of variety registration for vegetable crops and the ability to achieve plant variety protection and thus also intellectual property rights and the possibility to impose royalties. On the under part, in the blue side, we see the conventional breeding, which leads to a conventional variety standard DUS. Of course, plant variety protection is possible. There are also breeders that aim for organic, but have their material from a conventional plant breeding program. We call it breeding for organic. So it leads to conventional varieties with a normal conventional level of uniformity adapted for organic. Of course, also plant variety protection is possible. Other breeders, specifically aiming at organic plant breeding, performing plant breeding from the first cross according to the definition of organic plant breeding. I am not going into that details, that has been discussed. A little bit I go into the details later on, but for now I leave it like this. Organic varieties can come from an organic plant breeding program, and that's what we call organic varieties. It is not well defined in the legislation at the moment, but from EcoPB and live seeding we make proposals to get a clear definition. The definition is very important to block the route from conventional plant breeding, which leads to varieties that are not very uniform, into the route of an organic variety. That will be a hazard for the quality of that varieties that come into the market. So that route is definitely something we do not want and we should exclude by law. So again, an organic variety coming from a real organic plant breeding program under organic conditions, but also compliant with the definition of organic plant breeding, you can use the adapted evaluation of DUS regarding meaning that more flexibility is allowed on uniformity. In that case, PVP is not possible. It may also be that the organic variety still is compliant with the uniformity rules of the standard DUS. Then please go forward in the standard DUS, which means that plant variety protection is possible. What I explained, organic heterogeneous material, it is not a variety. It is a notification of where it comes from, and some plant health issues should be notified. The history of the OHM should be traceable, should be notified, but no PVP, of course. So this is the framework for agriculture crops. The addition is there that VCU is mandatory for the registration of a agricultural crop. There are two types of VCU, value for conservation and use. They are mentioned in the derogation that there should be organic VCU for organic varieties. We made proposals for organic VCU, which are presented in the morning webinar. So I leave it for that. And we see also some kind of cross routes from breeding for organic varieties, which we call it, to conventional VCU and to organic VCU. There is also a route, not on this picture, but we discussed it this morning, from conventional plant breeding, conventional variety. All right, please be welcome to put it also under organic VCU. VCU under organic conditions, with the stress on characteristics that are important for organic farming. However, all varieties that are tested in organic VCU have valued their value, have proven their value for organic variety, for organic farming in the organic VCU procedure. So that's the route for agricultural crops with the VCU on top of it. Here we come to some definition issues of organic plant breeding. It is important for the entry procedure at the examination office that it is safeguarded that the candidate variety comes from an organic plant breeding program indeed. So there should be full transparency on the breeding process and techniques that are used. And when the origin of organic plant breeding is not clear or there is no transparency on it, go ahead with the variety as breeding for organic, move forward to the conventional DUS procedure and ask for PVP. No problem. So we developed a checklist for organic varieties within live seeding, in which the consequences of the definition of organic plant breeding are integrated, meaning that the parental material should be free of genetic engineering, GMO and NGTs. The material should be free of cell fusion. Wait a minute. The first mark is should be free of organic engineering. Of course it should be free. Excuse me, I have to change that. The application of breeding techniques. The following breeding techniques are not allowed: genetic engineering, genome editing, cell fusion or induced mutation, in vitro culture, except for meristem culture. Specific crossing barriers should be accepted, and species-specific reproduction should be maintained. All deducted from the definition of organic plant breeding we agreed upon and will be proposed to the Commission as an improvement of the vague definition that is now in the PRM law. This is the continuation of the checklist, which is a little needs more explanation. So for different crossing types, self-crossings, out-crossing varieties, and vegetative propagated crops, all there are different criteria. But this is the list you have to fill in as a breeder. All breeding steps should be made under certified organic conditions. In order to get started with the introduction of organic candidate varieties to the examination office, there is a transition period under which the number of breeding cycles, for instance, are reduced. But after some more years, those numbers of years are all according to the definition. So ultimately, you can ask for plant variety protection as a breeder. When you say yes, then your candidate variety, okay, it is originated from an organic plant breeding program, but you want to apply for PVP, which means that it just goes into the standard DUS procedure, and all characteristics are assessed in any case, also for organic varieties, because it is compliant with the CPVO standards. And when some characteristics that may deviate according to the protocol, which we will see later, when some of these deviate from the standard uniformity, then it is denominated as an organic variety, and then you are not entitled to for PVP. So you start the high level of uniformity, and when after testing DUS, it seems that the uniformity is not according to the standards, then you use the adjusted procedure, and you can trade it as an organic. It can be registered as an organic variety. Is there any question up to now? I have to switch my screens to see if there is any hand raised. Please use your microphone. No? Then I go ahead. So, new protocols are developed up to the carrot and the kohlrabi that are now into the proposition for vegetables, for zucchini, onion, cauliflower, broccoli, fennel, leek, and chicory. That's concerning the vegetables. For the arable crops, now there are in wheat, barley, rye, and maize. And actually there are no new propositions for adjusted protocols. It has to be said that adjusted organic DUS protocols for agricultural species are less relevant because most breeders for agriculture want plant variety protection, and as it is an important part of their income, as opposed to vegetable seeds, for which just the market price is the most important part of the income of the breeder. But, however, organic VCU is very important for agriculture species. And again, we had the webinar on VCU, organic VCU, last morning. All proposals are available at the EcoPB SharePoint. The principles for adjusted DUS protocols for organic varieties is important to mention. All UPF and CPVO characteristics are described by the examiner. Some characteristics should be uniform. The characteristics that are important for the grower and for the market, of course, they should be uniform. Otherwise, you will not be able to sell the variety. It will be of no worth for the market. Characteristics, for example, that are only important for the description or for the distinctness of the variety may deviate from the standard uniformity, because still you then have a variety that is suitable for the market. But of course, also distinctness and stability should be all right. So that is the game we play with the examination offices. How many characteristics may deviate, provided that distinctness is still possible, distinctness from other varieties. And here you see carrots. For carrots, you have many F1 hybrids, and still there are some seed propagated varieties, how do you say it, open pollinated varieties in the market. For the last one, by nature they have less uniformity. They have less uniformity than the F1 hybrids. So there is a separate category for those two, meaning that uniformity is relative to the variety, to the type of varieties which is there, F1 hybrids or open pollinated varieties. So there is room for looking at another way to uniformity. Here an example for adapted DUS for organic varieties, in this case the case of onion. It was discussed a few weeks ago with CFS. Onion is a rather difficult crop to get uniform. Here we see on the left-hand side, we see all the CPVO characteristics. And in the red column, it says if it is relevant for growers and or for the market. If yes, it is a 1. If it is not important, it is a 0. In the blue columns, we see if it is difficult for the organic breeder to achieve DUS, to achieve uniformity. We see for a lot of characteristics it is. However, for the foliage attitude, the second one, I hope you can read it, it is important for the grower and it is not difficult to achieve. So the result from the EcoPB live seeding proposal in the orange columns is okay, leave that mandatory uniform, no problem. On the other hand, we have a lot of criteria that are hard to reach but are important for the grower. Then we must see, is it necessary, is it possible to allow deviation for those as well? And then after discussion, it comes to mandatory uniform or deviation allowed. Number 3, foliage box, the boxiness of the foliage. We see that it is important for the grower. It is difficult to achieve. So the breeders suggest it to that it may deviate from the standard uniformity because it is so difficult. However, CFS objects because already a tolerance is considered by a relative uniformity. But when we characterize all those kind of characteristics this way, there is no room for the breeder to, or the breeder needs to do a lot of inbreeding to get all those characteristics uniform. So that is why we decided to put a lot of those characteristics to the right-hand side column, saying that they might be deviant. Deviation might be allowed. So we end up with 13 characteristics that may deviate, 23 characteristics that should be uniform out of the 46 characteristics in total, which we agreed with breeders and GFS. Okay, this is enough room to maneuver for the breeder to do not that much inbreeding and to lose valuable characteristics due to inbreeding. Another example is the example of barley. Barley is not so difficult to get it uniform. We see all zeros in the blue columns. So this is some kind of another situation. And we see that the characteristics that are important for the market or for the consumers or for the traders or for the processors, that they should be uniform. And the characteristic like number 5 is the first one, flag leaf, anthocyane coloration of the auricles. It is of non-importance. It is also not very difficult to achieve, but for that one deviation is allowed. And there are more morphological characteristics like that. So the barley is already in the derogation. Now, when these proposals, is there a question up to now? Maybe this is a good moment for questions. I have to see where I can find your screen. Please use your microphone if you have one. Yeah, Peter?
I wonder, wouldn't it make sense when you apply or submit an organic variety, and as a breeder, you know perfectly well on which characteristics some deviation is present in your candidate variety, that you also enter that on the application form so that the competent authority knows for which characteristics to pay extra attention.
Yeah, I think it's a good suggestion. We in fact, when it is a characteristic that may deviate, yeah, why not make it a little more easy to the examiner? I don't know if there is any objection to that kind of thinking. Then I go forward. Thank you. My screen is still shared, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, where? So then the route of the proposals to the Commission. What we are working at, prepare proposals in collaboration with breeders and EcoPB. Check by the examination officers that are partner of live seeding, in this case for vegetables, GFS. In the first hand, then you have a paper version, which is thought by through examination officers and breeders. Sometimes it needs evaluation. I would say in any case it needs evaluation to see if the adapted protocol works. In the case of onions, when so many characteristics are moved to the right column, that more flexibility is allowed in uniformity, is the candidate still distinctable? We discussed that it is good to score this in the field, to have a picture of this in the field in DUS trials. And another point is, are there reference varieties available? Then also adhering to the point of Peter, also of course what the breeder always does, I think, is pointing at possible suitable reference varieties. So this is also the case here. It is more important even here because there are not so many organic varieties on the market yet. Next step will be communication with other examination offices, which are the most important for the crop at stake. In the meantime, I see raised hand from Gebhard. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Avko. I want to mention that the organic varieties will be compared with all other varieties. They are not compared only with organic varieties. So they will stand in a trial together with commonly known conventional varieties as well.
Yeah.
David, you can yeah, tell it.
You can comment on this, David?
Yeah, thanks.
Or Monica?
Sorry, I was not listening.
First,
Sorry,
David, I was asking. Yeah.
Can you please?
Yes, I will
repeat
the question. The remark from Gebhard was all the organic varieties are tested amongst the commonly known varieties on the market. And my remark was, are there enough reference varieties available? Can you comment on this?
About the reference variety available, so we order all of the new variety available on the at minimum in Europe because we are interested by the CPVO for almost all species. So we have to order all variety registered and in application almost in Europe. So we already do this job. But if we don't have one variety, we can order at the moment of during the application. The applicant can say my variety is nearby another one, and we can order it at this moment. It happens.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes we order new varieties, but maintainers who don't provide samples. So we do our best, but it depends the awareness and availability of seeds from the maintainers.
So you have your varieties that you have in the trials for a certain species, and when the breeder mentions one variety from okay, it is this can be used as a reference, you try to have seed of it, and it becomes also in the DUS trial.
Yes.
Yeah. Gebhard again.
Yes, and it is not important if it is an organic or a conventional variety. It's always the same procedure.
Yes, yes, yes. Monica?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, of course, we can't compare it with organic varieties because there is no official organic variety on the market yet.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I think what there is a difference with the references is the difference if you have an F1 hybrid, then you will compare it with F1s, and if it's open pollinated, it will be the references will also include open pollinated varieties.
Yeah. Like the carrot example.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Peter?
Yeah, well, going on the remark from Gebhard, yes, a new candidate variety is compared for distinctness with all commonly known varieties. So it doesn't matter if it's an organic variety or not. It has to be distinct, distinguishable, recognizable. But it does matter when it comes to uniformity, and especially when you have an adapted protocol for DUS, for organic, then one of the characteristics is not, let's say, as uniform as standard, conventional. And then it might be interesting to have reference varieties. But then again, as Monica mentioned, we are only starting. There are no varieties or organic varieties yet on the market. So reference varieties have to be set in the coming years because, let's say, non-uniformity, yeah, that goes only so far. Because entirely not uniform, sorry, that cannot be a variety.
Exactly, that is true. That is true. Yeah, yeah. Thinking about the carrot example, imagine that there are only F1 varieties on the market, and we have to introduce a separate category for open pollinated varieties. You would have the same discussion. Then you would start up a reference collection of pollinated varieties. Which, yeah, now we have to start up a reference collection for organic varieties, if I understand.
I wouldn't say not so much for organic varieties, but for specific characteristics which matter for organic varieties.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. Okay. So my screen is still shared. I will continue with the communication to the other examination offices that are not part in live seeding, but are important for the specific crop species. It should also be communicated at a higher CPVO level. The expert meetings in November on the technical committees are suitable for that. And ultimately, when it has been discussed with the authorities and the breeders, it should go forward as a proposal for an adapted protocol to the Commission, which is also asked by the Commission to do so. This is also the end of my presentation. I want to go forward with the discussion. I already made some discussion point about the costs of an organic system for DUS and also for VCU, an organic registration system, which means that especially for the VCU, but probably also for an organic variety, there should be an extension of the testing capacity, so more costs are involved. Maybe not so much for DUS, but okay, the examination officers have to spend time to get known with the adjusted procedure, how to work with it. The entry procedure should be introduced, some kind of other procedural things, process things should be included. So more costs are involved. And I think it is reasonable that at least partial government funding should be organized, because it ultimately is important to achieve the goals of the Green Deal in the EU and the farm to fork strategy. So that's just a statement. Maybe people want to react on this or want to raise other discussion points. Monica?
Yeah, just wanted to give some information about also for the procedure. As APCO showcased, we have already some protocols developed in addition to those that are already published in the implementing act. And the idea is that we also develop some more protocols that get us by the deliverable, and then we also submit this to the Commission to make them aware that more protocols are coming, and that and we have been informing them that there was also kind of a delay in application because first of all it needs a procedure to be set up at the examination office, but also as it's plant breeding, it also needs time to have the candidates for variety application available. And I think there was some issues that also delayed or was a burden for the organic breeders to submit. Was one of it was that the definition was not really clear what is an organic variety and what not. And the biggest one was that at the beginning there was this insecurity that if I apply for organic variety, I cannot get plant variety protection, which is important for a certain group of organic plant breeders. And that so the latest past have been clarified that this is not a problem, but it need to be indicated quite early in the process if you want to have the DUS, and also in the present text 57 years it's written that as a breeder you can ask that you may ask for the adjusted DUS, but you could also say I wanted to have the normal DUS, and then it goes to normal procedure. I think that's a quite important way, and as also the second information I want to give is that organic varieties have already been integrated in the present draft of the plant reproductive material, and there they have referred to those that are listed in these implementing directives, and also said for those where it's not yet an implementing directive, there they could work with kind of off types, which was quite heavily discussed, and there was also a bit of kind of unclarity of that means, for example, 10% off types for self-breeding species, if that means was that really totally different plants, or if and our meaning was that the 10% it's really for one characteristics you could have, like for example when you take the flower color of, let's say, alfalfa, that maybe then the most are light purple, but there might be one, let's say less than 10% we have white colors, whereas all the remaining phenotype is showing the same idiotype than your variety. So I think that also would need to be the better definition, but that's also heavily discussed, I think, in the plant reproductive material that is now still need to get an approval at the council before it can enter the trilogue discussion.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for the information, the additional information. Carl?
I have a general question. So if I understand correctly, the adapted protocols are quite specific. So you write down the specific traits for which you may have you don't really have to achieve the uniformity. And for me, the question is because we had this experience in cereals. So with barley, we had one characteristic was an exception and one other was not. And so the question is just how sure are we about the traits, and couldn't we also aim for more flexibility? A little bit along the lines what Peter Kaiser suggested, you know, that or with off types. Are we very sure? I ask this because I don't know how it is in vegetables. If there it's very clear, you know, which traits are good, the ones to choose and which are not, then it's fine for me. But for cereals, we are actually not quite so sure. And just to also be honest about this point, we breeders don't really know about these characteristics in cereals, at least. You know, we don't look at this. These characteristics. Some of them, yes, but most of them we have no idea. And we of course we have to know a little bit, but we are not the experts on this by any means. So the question is about, is that really our only strategy now to write down characteristic specific traits, or do we also aim for a little bit more like off types or other strategy? But that's for discussion.
Yeah, I think you are right. The specific traits, the specific characteristics that are mentioned in the CPVO, yeah, are more important for the market of vegetables than it is for agriculture. Indeed, we had discussions about about the off types. Can somebody go into more detail on this?
Yeah, I think the discussion, it's a bit different between the cereal breeders and the vegetable breeders, because for cereal it's clear that the DUS is just for the distinctiveness and to get registration. But what's really important on the part, it's the VCU testing. That's really the value for cultivation and use. And the DUS itself has never been meant to be of relevance for the market. So that's why, for example, for the cereals, probably 90% are not relevant for economic traits, because the really relevant things you test in the VCU testing. And I think for the vegetables, as there are so many different vegetables, and so let's say, I would say the phenotypes are much more diverse in the vegetables than it is in the cereals or in the arable crops, and therefore you might also have more characteristics to look at, and some of them that are taken might really be relevant for the market, but let's say that's more by chance that they have been relevant. But it's clear that if you want to go, and the ones that are relevant for the market are the ones that, of course, the breeder also looking for. And you also have to be a little bit careful to say we're not looking at the breeders, you're not looking at the DUS traits, because if we want to get a registered variety, we should know the rules and yeah, be aware of that this will be tested. And if you want plant variety protection, you have to pass the full DUS test, and then you better know which are the DUS traits.
Yeah, or is it enough maybe to minimize or to have a certain level of off types, a low level of off types? Is that guarantee enough that you also fulfill to the uniformity of the UPOV characteristics? That maybe another way of working then for agriculture crops.
Yeah, I guess if we talk with off types and like this 10 or 20% that has been put in the draft text, and then we also need to say for how many characteristics that is, because we don't want to have a real off type like a plant that is totally different from the rest of it. So we would also need to see, then we could say maybe if you have, you might have maybe 10% off types in maximum 10% of the characteristics, something like that. No, like in on your case, you had there you had said you had 13 that you said that maybe, and 23 that for sure should be stable, so would be about 1/3 then of that one could say it. There can be off types maximum 10% if it's in self-pollinating, in maximum 1/3 of the characteristics of the DUS protocol. But I would really be happy to hear also the opinion of David and how you see that.
So next to barley, if that also would work for wheat, for instance.
Yeah, the idea, the question is, I think we discussed this also once, that instead of making it for each species, can we make it more generic, working with this off type level? And
Can I take the floor?
Yes.
Yeah, just few remark because I have to say that inside JVS we don't all full agree with this method to analyze crop by crops. So some of us would like to make global work to make it more quick and easy. But yeah, well, in vegetables we consider that is not very easy to make this kind of job, and I think in cereal it will be the same. I'm not very specialist for cereals, so I can't tell anything. Maybe Italy would be more. Anna would be more expert, but to me, I don't know. One remark about the work we did. We have the proposition from EcoPB and all breeders, organic breeders. And sometimes there is a lot of characteristics that which would like to be deviated from the protocol, but we said that if there is too many characteristics allowed it to deviate, it would be impossible to follow. And my suggestion is that if there is one proposition is if there is too many deviation, why do breeders try to apply for OHM? Because if it is very diversified, there is no protection anyway. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think for me that sounds quite good, and I think we could also maybe come up really, as you rightly say, if there are too many exceptions from the DUS test, then it might get a bit very difficult also for as it still need to be sufficient characters left over for the distinctiveness to others. So I think one could probably say that maybe maximum, yeah, 1/3 or maximum 1/4 of the characteristics could be more flexible. I think it would be quite good to really say that there's a certain percentage of the total characteristics that can be more flexible, but then that 2/3 or 3/4 need to be fitting to the DUS.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. We may put that into the deliverable as a proposition for agriculture crops. When there are too many deviations on too many characteristics, well, why not go as an OHM? Because it is too heterogeneous.
From a DUS point of view, not
from a DUS point of view. Yeah. Peter?
Yeah, I'm not so sure about, let's say, a percentage of the total number of characteristics. Looking into the various crops, you still might end up with a significant number of characteristics in which you don't have to meet the regular uniformity characteristics. If you want to make an arrangement beforehand for all crops, you could also argue, okay, maximum of 3 characteristics per crop, to make sure that it still looks at least like a cultivar, more or less uniform, manageable, predictable, etc. Or better still, but that will take a lot of work, do it crop by crop and establish that over the next few years in which you have an influx of applications for organic varieties and see what comes up, and then set the bar according to that. But then again, that takes up a lot of work, takes up a lot of discussion between the different examination officers. So I don't know if that's manageable. Much easier would be to say, okay, sorry, every crop maximum 3 characteristics, and if it's more, sorry. It's hardly a variety anymore.
But just looking at those that are already agreed, the 6 arable crops and the 4 vegetables, the characteristics are between 9 and 12. And for the vegetables, and just checking.
Yeah, but that's what. Yeah,
7.
But then again, Monica, that's the total number of characteristics in which there can be some flexibility. It doesn't need to be flexible in all those characteristics, but the other way around, if it is not uniform in all those potential characteristics, does it still look like a cultivar to you?
Yeah.
No, of course not, but I think 3 is too little. I think if you could say maximum 10 characters if you don't want to have a percentage. I still think if you have, I think for me the percentage would work, because if you have the majority, like if you have, for example, 3/4 of the part that it's uniform, then you know that's a uniform variety, but which has certain problems with the uniformity. But we could, just looking at what it's already published, we could also say a maximum of 10 characteristics. Just 3, I think it's really too little.
But then again, it would be interesting to hear from Gebhard, as an experienced breeder. You've provided some examples of crops and, let's say, characteristics in which you have trouble reaching enough uniformity and still maintaining productivity. So what would be a workable number? And then again, from the DUS officers present, let's hear it. If we got, let's say, 10 characteristics in which you are not meeting the regular uniformity criteria.
I think the discussion is mainly about agriculture crops, for which DUS is, for the breeder and for the market, is not so important. For the vegetables, DUS is important for the market, because a lot of characteristics do matter for the market. And for that, I think we have a system that works, species by species, but again, it is important to have some characteristics uniform, because otherwise you won't sell your variety. So I think the focus here is on agriculture crops, but maybe Gebhard, you raised your hand for a while, maybe you can reflect, or do you have another question?
No, I want to reflect on that. For me, both proposals do not really work. The first, an absolute number, a fixed number of characteristics, it is not really working, because we have so different numbers of tested characteristics within various crops. For example, maybe 15 at kohlrabi and more than 80 at zucchini. So when you fix it at 3 or 10, it is when you say 10, then it is 2/3 in kohlrabi and not so much in zucchini. And also a fixed number of a percentage, in my point of view, it is not really helping. We agreed during our discussions on our proposals with David that it is not helpful when it is too much. When we apply for too many characteristics, the flexibility, it would not be accepted. On the other hand, we have an example in broccoli where quite I don't remember exactly, but more than the half of the characteristics are agreed to propose for more flexibility, because it is needed. So it is crop to be decided crop by crop. And for the
But half of the
procedure.
characteristics, it's very much Gebhardt.
Yes, but this is our agreement we did in our discussion, and then let's see how it's going on. The proceeding, we agreed last year with David not to do everything on the fields. We have enough experience on breeder side and on examination officer side to do most of the work theoretically. And where we are in line and agree on the proposal, we can go forward to propose it to the CPVO and other examination offices. Where we are not exactly in line, where it might be more difficult, the example onion was said, we decided to go to in field trials next year, to be more sure what we have discussed. I think this is a good way, and but it is clear we have to do it crop by crop. Thanks.
For the vegetables.
Yes.
Yes, for the vegetables. For the vegetables. Yeah. Agree. Okay.
And maybe
we-
David can add something, but I think this is our agreement we had.
Yes, I agree. Once again, we don't full agree in JVS, but if there is some financial help from European projects to involve some people into this work, we will continue, because we need rules. Once again, I told that we are only one examination office. There is 27 other on European. So we need clear rules, because we need transparency. So this work is quite transparent. Long time to do, but it gives us the chance to advance and to propose diversity on the field. So